Hi, this is James Moss, and I'm doing a review of the 1985 comedy film Teen Wolf. Right here, the first film, right here with Michael J. Fox in it. Yep, Teen Wolf is celebrating its 40th anniversary this year. Yep, it was released on August the 23rd, 1985, directed by Ron Daniel. Just a minute. Yep, it has a good cast in it, so let's get started. Let's start with the title card scene. Teen Wolf, and we get to a basketball game where Scott Howard, played by Michael J. Fox, is on the team, trying his best to win, but that basketball team, the Beavers, at his school keep losing, and they hitting the showers. We get to Chubby, played by Mark Helton, who was in Pee-wee's Big Adventure as that bully. He was also in the sequel. I'll get to that. Well, anyways. He was saying, that's when Scott says, Chubby, you're on a diet. He says, no. And we get to Skiles, who is Scott's friend, is just congratulating the team. Boy, he's just always like to make quick buck and just, be popular. But that's Scott's friend anyways. Skiles has been invited to a party, and his friend Nick too, and Nick. Well, anyways, Skiles and Meg try to go to this liquor store to pick up a keg of beer, but he gets turned away because he's underage. Just a minute. Meanwhile, Scott works at his dad's hardware store. Harrow Howard, played by James Hampton. Yeah, well, anyways, Scott was making some deliveries, including to his school, because they're doing a play of Gone with the Wind. Yep, and he has a friend named Boof, B-O-F, Boofy. Yeah, well, anyways, he was just trying to get everything. He was in love with, because Scott's in love with this girl named Pamela. Yeah, well, anyways, Skiles convinced Scott to go to the liquor store with him that night to pretend he's robbing the place so he can get the cake of beer. That's when Scott noticed some changes on him early, like he has long hair and keep hearing dog flutes. Yeah, and everything. So Scott went along with it, carrying a water gun inside, trying to rob the place. Pretending to rob the place. Scott walked up to the cashier saying, I like a keg of beer. And he says, what? I like a keg of beer. And shocked and says, and also there's a candy bar. Well, Scott got the keg of beer. Skiles convinced Scott to drive so he could do some car surfing up there. Do some car surfing. That's a bad idea. Don't do it anyways. This car surfing went well until Scott stopped and heard. Well, anyways, later that night they went to the party. Scott and Skiles bring the keg of beer. But it turns out they're not the only. There are a lot of cake of beers here, yeah. Everybody was Kurt's house, who was a bully. Everybody was sour. Everybody was just having a good time. That's when it's time for the makeout room. Scott and Buffy been chosen to go in the makeout room. They went out and make out, and that's when Scott's fingernails turned into claws up here and did a number on her, but not in the bad way, but in a sexual way. Scott left the party. He went home and his dad says, Scott, you're home? No, Dad. He went in the bathroom. That's when Scott noticed he's turning into a werewolf. Yeah. And then his dad Scott opened the door. His dad is also a werewolf. Yeah, just a minute. Scott said, explained to him that it's somehow it's a fight where werewolves. I thought it was Skip Jew, but it didn't skip you. Must have been a delayed feedback. Well, anyway, Scott's freaking out, but he began to accept it. The next day, he showed his friend Skiles that he's a werewolf, and Skiles was surprised. Later that day at the basketball game, the Beavers were losing until Scott turned into a werewolf and became popular for being a werewolf. He became popular for being a werewolf. And in no time, there's all Teen Wolf merchandise coming out. Skiles is just cashing in on the fun. I want that Teen Wolf shirt. It'll be good on me. Boy. At first, Scott is happy being a werewolf. He got Pamela. Buffy trying to explain to him that Pamela was just using you. Well, but then at the prom, at the school dance, get this, guy was dressing like John Travolta from Saturday Night Fever. Doing some disc at the school dance. He was doing some discoing and having fun. And then that's when the school bully appeared. Scott attacked him. The principal was about to suspend him, but his dad Howard intervened, telling him to leave my son alone, and turned into a werewolf, saying, "Boy." Scott couldn't figure out and decided to stay be a human, and then his Buffy says, "You could just be yourself." At the basketball game, that championship game that night, the Beavers were losing until Scott realized doesn't have to be a werewolf. He could just be himself, and he played the game so hard. Just a minute. Yeah. The Beavers were down by 10 points. By 10 seconds. Scott shot the ball in slow motion, and then the Beavers won the championship. Yeah! Everybody was thrilled. Scott doesn't have to be a werewolf at all times just to win. He could just be himself, and he did. Yeah. Everyone was proud, including his dad. Yep, that's the end of the movie. The first Teen Wolf movie is pretty good. I'd give it a 5 out of 5. Pretty good. Yep. The moral of this message is don't be something different. Be yourself. Then you could accomplish anything. Even if you're a werewolf, you could just defend yourself. Well, anyways, the year later spawned of the cartoon series that ran for 2 seasons. It should never have been canceled. I'd like to see a 3rd or 4th season. See how it goes. Yeah, I give the first Teen Wolf movie a 5 out of 5. It's excellent and it kicks ass and it's brilliant. Yeah, for my next review, I'm going to review Teen Wolf 2. Till then, I'm going to see somebody turn into a werewolf and hang out with a werewolf. See ya and have a nice day.